Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Confidence Academy podcast in its brand new format. We're right here on YouTube, and also, I guess you're listening on all the usual audio channels that we've always been on before as well. I am so excited to be bringing this back. First of all, I had the call to do that at the end of last year, so that would have been the end of 2024. And initially, I thought I was just bringing it back so people could access the episodes in the content that had already been put out. But of course, as soon as I made the decision to bring it back, I started being flooded with all these ideas about things I could talk about. And I don't know if you're new here. I don't know if you've been listening to the podcast for a while. It would be great if you wanted to let me know that. But if you're new here, what you may not know is the Confidence Academy podcast was launched in 2017. And initially, it was a way for me to talk about the thing I'd been through, basically, which was an anxiety diagnosis and the understanding that the coming to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to overcome that anxiety fully. And, I've said it so many times before, there may be people listening to this going, well, I've overcome my anxiety fully. Brilliant. If you have, great. It's not my experience, but what has been my experience is each time I was on my knees, each time I thought there was no hope and everything was falling apart, it was actually a gateway into another evolution of myself. And I know how wanky that sounds. And I know how weird that sounds. And this is not how people tend to talk about anxiety. There's a lot of talk now about mental health and about how we should be talking about it, which is amazing. But I still think the narrative is very much that if you suffer with any kind of anxiety or anything like that, that it's kind of a done deal and you're a bit stuck with it. And the best you can do is manage the symptoms. And that hasn't been my experience either. It's not something I can say that I've completely overcome, but it's something I can say I wouldn't want to, because each time it comes around, there are deep, profound messages in there for me. And if you can get over the fear of having it, and if you can get past the stigma of, oh my God, is this actually what I'm living with? There's some real deep transformation on the other side of it for you. And we're not supposed to live without anxiety. There's anxiety of all kinds, and that's not even what I'm going to go into in this episode. But, there's the anxiety you feel about starting a new job or watching your kid go off on a trip for the first time. And then there is the all-consuming, I call it body anxiety. It just takes over your entire body. It's not even mental anymore. So all that talk of positive affirmations and things you can say, that doesn't work. It doesn't work. Doesn't matter a shit. When your body is in that place, those mental reframes, sadly, will not be enough. And I learnt that the hard way. I learnt that off the back of building a business that was helping people with anxiety. And I had written my own PDFs full of those affirmations that I really, truly believed would work, until I found myself in the midst of a panic attack. And I thought, I know what, I'll look at my own guide. Maybe my, 2 months ago self had written that to help my now self. And I read the guide and I was like, this is just bullshit. It's not helping. Doesn't help. None of this feels helpful, because none of it is touching what's really happening. And that's what this episode is all about. This is all about you understanding that what feels like a breakdown is not a breakdown at all. It's a breakthrough. And we're going to deconstruct all of the common misconceptions that there are. Now, I want to say a caveat before I go any further. I'm not saying all mental breakdowns are spiritual awakening. I'm not saying that at all. I would consider that all I can do is talk about my experience, right? And I would consider myself as someone who, I was not deeply mentally unwell. I wasn't at the point where they were gonna, put me under a doctor or send me anywhere. It wasn't at that point. And I almost think in some ways, it's worse. And I feel bad saying that because I guess it's not worse. But what I mean is it was mild enough that no doctors were super concerned with it. You know, when I went to the doctor, and by the way, I'd had very physical symptoms. I didn't feel anxious. I didn't feel like in panic. I was experiencing dizzy spells, heart palpitations, and bouts of rage where I honestly felt I could kill a man with my bare hands, when it was like the red mist would descend. And that is not my natural state at all. So it was very, very alarming, very scary to go through. And I never knew what would trigger it. And it would never be anything big either. Like one time I'd written an email. I was just writing an email. And I think I'd written maybe a couple of paragraphs, and then I leant on a button and deleted it. And I lost my shit to the point where I called my husband about 19 times in a row. He was a taxi driver, so he couldn't answer. So when he finished whatever job he'd been on, he saw 19 missed calls on his phone, and he thought, shit. And he rang me, and I was so inconsolable. I so couldn't talk. He thought someone had died. And we had young babies at the time. So he was then in panic going, what the hell's happened? And when I eventually could speak and I said, I'd written a really good email and I lost it, he was like, are you joking? Are you joking? Like, what is this? And so there was all of that on top of it, you know, like nobody gets it. And to everyone around you, and even to yourself, you just think you're completely mad. You think you've completely lost the plot. And there were very physical reasons for this. So I just had 2 young babies. My hormones were all over the place. So there was that physical reality. But also, I was not living the life I was supposed to live. I was not seeing myself the way that I was supposed to see myself. I didn't value myself at all, actually. And I needed this experience to help me understand the gravity of who I am as a person, the gravity of who I am as a soul. And I do believe that that's the case for some of you as well. And it's not all of us. You know, I would never make a blanket statement. I would never want to say everyone who's going through this is definitely having a spiritual awakening, because I don't know. Nobody knows, in fact. Anyone who sits there and tells you that they have the absolute answer and that they understand why you're going through what you're going through, they don't know. The way I work, in the way I've always operated, is on resonance. So I've only been able to listen to people that I felt connected to. I've only been able to receive, you know, messages or advice and suggestions from people that I could see myself in. So before we go any further, whether you're watching this on YouTube, and if you are, hey, I did my hair for you, or whether you're listening to this on the audio, if any part of you sees yourself in me, then you might want to keep listening. You know, if you're watching this and everything's turning inside out and you're going, oh my God, this woman, like, what is she on about? This is not my experience at all. Then there's a very good chance that I'm not the person for you, and that, you know, so don't listen. Go and find somebody else. I do think it's important to say that. There are so many people now in the world sharing their stories, sharing their experiences. Lots of people, though, are speaking from a place of, I have the answers and I absolutely know. All I have is my experience, and I can absolutely categorically tell you, I remember the point that I was on my knees, devoid of all hope, all faith, literally ready to can it all in. And that was 5 years ago, versus where I'm sat now. And where I'm sat now isn't someone who doesn't have anxiety attacks. I had one last Tuesday. It's Tuesday today. A week ago, I had an anxiety attack. That anxiety attack lasted maybe an hour, not much longer than that, because it was still a very real experience that my body and my human needed to go through. And there were very tangible reasons for the anxiety attack as well. So we're not going to judge the anxiety attack. What's different, though, between who I was 5 years ago versus who I am now, is who I am now knows a deeper truth. Who I am now understands the bigger picture, even if I can't always see it. And so when I'm faced with debilitating anxiety. And it really was debilitating last week. I cancelled everything and gave myself the morning in bed. So it's not that I figured out a way to not have that experience, but I didn't walk through that experience in fear that I was a broken person. I didn't walk through that experience believing that I couldn't come through it. I honoured what was coming up, understanding the gravity of allowing those emotions to be felt, and knowing that I would come through it. Knowing that I would come through and out the other side, knowing that would happen quickly. And like I said, it did. And actually by the afternoon of last Tuesday, I was back to kicking my own ass. I had this new energy that was fueling me. So that was a very long caveat. But it's so important to say, I do not want to diminish anybody's experience. If you are having a serious breakdown right now, then what you need is support. And you need to find that support where you feel most comfortable seeking it, and that might be a doctor or a therapist, and it could be in medication. I've had all of those things. So none of those things are wrong. And if I ever felt like I needed those things again, I would not hesitate to have them. But my lived experience is that I came off the medication within 6 months and I've never gone back on it. And there have been times, like I say, like last week, where anxiety comes up, but I don't feel that I need that to support me, because what it's meant for me is something much deeper. And these are the people I'm here to talk to. So please, can we just all take a moment, breathe that in. If this is not the place for you, then stop listening, please, because I would not want to diminish anyone's experience, and I wouldn't want to give you any kind of false information if what you need right now is a doctor and some medication. There was a point where that's what I needed. So, okay, so we're done with that. So if you are still watching and if you are still listening, I'm willing to bet that you have seen more than one element of my story that mirrors to yours, whatever that may be. And by the way, I love hearing from you. So if you're watching this on YouTube, there's a comment section. You can subscribe to this channel. You can talk to me in the comments and I will talk to you back, which I love. There's also a Facebook group you can join called The Empowerment Collective. It's on Facebook. I'll put a link wherever this will go. And if you're listening on the audio as well, it will be in the show notes. Is that it? Oh, and of course you can join my mailing list. I have to say all these things. Okay. So now we're through the caveat and now I've set the scene and you understand where it is that I'm coming from, then I'm here to tell you your breakdown is not a breakdown. And the thing about this is, right, and that this is probably true for you, this is probably not the first time you've been here, right? You've probably been through multiple cases of this. And you probably already know what I'm saying. You probably go, yeah, I know. Like I've had these moments before where I thought I was breaking down. I've had a spiritual awakening. I've been on my spiritual path for a long time. I consider myself actually very well versed in, spiritual shenanigans, and I understand this. But why does this keep happening? Why do I keep looping around again and again and again? What is it that bungee ropes me back to this place of dismantlement? Is dismantlement a word? I don't know. We're going to say that it is. And I'm going to say, well, first of all, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. It feels like that. That's how I felt last Tuesday. It was like, are you joking? Again, we're back here again. And like, I get that there's lessons here to be learned, but my God, it's exhausting, right? So can we just take a moment to acknowledge how freaking exhausting this is? I want to reiterate a belief that I guess I've cultivated this belief myself, because it wasn't always a belief I had, but it is a belief I have now. And it's a very strong, rooted belief that we are not tested. You will hear a lot of people going, oh, as soon as you get close to what you want, the universe tests you to see if it's really what you want. And I don't believe that. I don't actually believe that. I don't believe the universe tests us. I don't believe anyone or anything is testing us. What I believe in is energetic alignment. And I believe that when you are becoming the truest version of you, which, by the way, is an ongoing cycle of rebirth, right? When you are stepping into that version of yourself, I feel like we move through a gateway. I feel like we step out of the version of us that we were and the door closes behind us. And how that feels is, you know, that's not who you are anymore. You know, that's not how you operate. You know, that's not how you think. You know, you will never go back to being that version of you ever again. The door is closed behind you. But you're not yet in the full identity of who you're becoming. So you're in this kind of in-betweeny place, this void, where the door is open in front of you and there's a golden light pouring through. And how it has felt for me is like, I'll stick my head in or like tip my toe over the edge and go like, ooh, like, I think this is who I am. And you can hang out there for a minute. It's what can you hold energetically? And I think this is the work, right? Because if you just go charging through that door from who you were into who you're becoming, you haven't learned to energetically hold that version of yourself yet. And it gets overwhelming. And guess what happens? To the human, yeah, they have a bit of a breakdown because everything they knew is gone. Like everything they thought they knew is gone. Everything they thought they knew about themselves has dissolved. But everything they're stepping into hasn't anchored in yet. They've not had enough of that lived experience. It's like, what's the analogy here? I don't even know if I have one, which is unheard of. I always have an analogy. It's never around anything I fully understand. So I always trip myself up giving my analogies. But I feel like it's like I'm seeing things being dipped. So like thrice cooked chips, you know, like chips that get cooked 3 times. It's like this, right? Or like, what is it that gets dipped? Is it fish? Like when you're putting batter on fish? Like what is that dipping I'm seeing? I'm seeing something get dipped. Or like cake pops. They get dipped in the icing and then they get dipped in the cake. Like there's multiple dipping that has to happen before you get presented with the finished thing, whether that's a piece of battered cod or a cake pop on a stick that's covered in sprinkles. The cake pop, before that happens, is just a ball of cake. And then there are just troughs that it has to be dunked into before it can become the full thing. That's the analogy. Again, I have no idea about cake pops. Is cake pops even the right name for them? I don't know. The round cake things that look like lollies on sticks, but it's cake. So anyway, I think that's what happens. I think we leave our old identities behind. We land in the void, which feels completely dysregulating. And we're like, oh God, like shit, there's nothing here. Like there's nothing. It's just dark. Everything's dark. And then we seek the light and we jump through it and we go, oh, is this where I belong? And it's like, look how amazing you are. And we're like, can't cope with that. Can't cope with that. And we step back through. And then it's like, oh, am I ready yet? No, step back through. Oh, am I ready yet? No. It's like cars. Cars must go through this when they're being made. Again, no idea about how cars are made. But there must be a point where the machine puts all the bits together and then eventually it starts to look like a car. And then it goes through the process of having all the bits added on. You can see I have no idea what I'm talking about. But you end up with the shell of the car and then you get the paint. And I guess it's not one lick of paint. It's never one lick of paint, even when you're painting a wall. So I guess if you're spray painting a car, there must be multiple layers of that paint that needs to be sprayed. We are being taken through that process. What it feels like in that moment, though, is that everything is unraveling. You will start to feel that you don't know what you're talking about, that nothing you thought you knew makes any sense anymore. And the deepest, darkest parts of you that didn't get resolved yet, that didn't get seen yet, will bubble up to the surface. All your deepest fears, all your worst nightmares come back up and go, ooh, here we are. This is really who you are. This deep, dark part of you that you didn't shine a light on yet. And that, for a lot of people, is enough to send them screaming back through the door that they just came through. They're like, do you know what? I don't even want the up level. It's not worth it. Like, let me go back to who I know I am, even though that version of me is not the highest version of me, even though I'm not really living the life I want, even though I'm not really getting the results I want. It's close enough. It's too hard to do it the other way. And too many of us are running back through that door. I have not run back through that door. I have made myself stay in the void. I have kept popping my little head in and out of that door. It's been so painful. But there comes a point where there's nothing else to add. There's no more cake. There's no more icing. There's no more sprinkles. There's no more spray paint. Pick your analogy. There comes a point where you are that completed version of yourself. And that time you step through the door, it doesn't feel confronting. It doesn't feel overwhelming. And you feel like, oh my God, yes, this is who I am. This is who I am. And then everything lines up to show you that that's truly who you are. And it's only when you suddenly catch yourself looking back and recognizing who you used to be versus who you are now that you realize you even made it through that door. And that's what spiritual awakening looks like. It's an ongoing process. You don't get to spiritually awaken, get a certificate and go, I am now enlightened. The first time you have an awakening, that is what you'll think. So if that's where you are, I'm so sorry. I have news for you. We're cyclical creatures. You're going to do a cycle in your current iteration, and then you're going to come back around and you'll be ready for the upgrade. It's like going around a Monopoly board. You collect £200 and off you go. At some point, all that shit's coming back again. It's coming back again because you are different. You are at a new level. You are at a place where you are ready to now hold a higher frequency vibrationally. You are ready to let go of more of that stuff that was holding you back. We are not designed to let go of it all at once. And so that's the process. So when you're beating yourself up going, why am I here again? That's why. You're here again because that's exactly why. It's what we're here for. You are spiraling up, you're cyclical, and you may as well know that it's going to come again, but you also have to know that you absolutely will come through it, like you've come through it every other time. But if you can walk into this or be in this with the knowledge that there is gold there for you, there is actual gold. I do truly believe, well, in my experience anyway, that every time I go through this, I'm reminded of the people I'm here to help. I'm reminded of how those people feel. I'm reminded of how dark it actually feels, because for the most part, I do forget. Because once you're through that door and you're in your golden light again, you do forget how freaking hard it is to walk the journey that you've walked. The people that you are here to change the lives of are all behind you at different stages. Every now and then, I think we need to remember how those people are feeling and what it is they're going through. And I just did it last Tuesday, which is why I'm able to come and share this with you now from that perspective. If I'd recorded this episode 2 weeks ago, I don't think I would have come with the same depth of clarity. And that's the gold. So the identity loss that you feel, that sense of burning down, it does feel dysregulating, and it absolutely feels like it's the end, and it's because it is, but it's not the end full stop. It's just the end of that cycle, and it means you're ready for the next one. So learn to breathe through it. Use whatever modalities you have at your disposal. I used EFT, breathwork, singing, toning, meditation, prayer, everything. I threw everything at it, because you just have to know you're coming through it. And that was the vast difference for me between last week and 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I didn't have that certainty. I honestly didn't think I was coming through it. I couldn't see how. Last week, I absolutely knew that I would. So I was like, okay, we're just hanging out here for a while. Let me gather all of my tools that I've learned to support myself through this. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything that I'm here. I just have to remember the truth of who I am and the fact that I will come through it. And that's what I wanted you to know today. So let me know how this episode landed. I would love to hear your experience of this. Please share. Come and join me in my Facebook group. Comment below this video, and I'll be back again soon with another episode. Mwah. Thanks for watching.